perfectly fine.
Oh, yeah. So my allergies, as Jose and I were getting ready here, my allergies are terrible. So no, I haven't been crying. It's just my allergies are just insane this morning. So I apologize in advance, everybody, for that. It's too funny. Autocorrect is hilarious, Jose. So in the comments over here, I like to say, hey guys, we're going to be starting here in 10 minutes. I put 10 months. So I guess I'll see you back in 10 months. Good morning, Regina. Hi, nice to see you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This is the Food Safety Chat. I'm off to a weird start here this morning, Jose, but that's okay. We're going to get back on track. And we're really happy that you're with us here today. If you're new to the chat, welcome. Pull up a chair. We're going to be talking about a food safety subject and really have a conversation around this. And that's what's really fun about this, because we do this every Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. And I bring an amazing guest on the chat like Jose, who can share the latest and greatest information on food safety so that you can make product amazing and safe for everyone. And we appreciate all that you do. So part of what we love to do here in the morning too is thank you for all that you did this week to keep everybody safe. So we appreciate you. So with that, of course, so Jose, I'm always super glad that you're on the chat. So Jose Sabal with Sabal Food Safety Consulting. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Brian. No concerns. I went to Virginia visiting a client the beginning of the week, and oh my goodness, I'm just amazed the things that can be done with fermentation. You go to that facility, and that is pretty much going like a drug manufacturer or something like that. All of these equipment and pipes and connections and sensors everywhere is so different from just manufacturing any food. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting, these dynamics that we're seeing in the food industry right now, because it seems like the cultured products are really starting to pick up interest. The meat substitute products are really having a hard time. So Impossible Meat, I think, so they're declaring bankruptcy, so they're going in the wrong direction. And it's interesting to see how these things go, which really kind of gets into our topic here around risk management, which we're going to be talking about here shortly. Good morning, Paul. Good to see your pretty face. Paul's always so tan. His profile picture, he's just I look so white compared to Paul here in these pictures. But anyway, one of the things that we love to do on the chat, and I know, Jose, you have your tea, and I have my coffee here. Yes, so everybody join us for a drink, please. Cheers.
Cheers.
Very nice. So how's the weather down in southern Florida, my friend?
Exactly like the same as any other year. Very hot, very humid.
Very hot and humid. Yeah, it's been quite warm here in Colorado. My lawn is definitely paying the price. But looks like we have some rain coming, so that's good.
Well, Brian, you need to define hot weather.
Oh yes. It's a relative thing for sure. Hot for Colorado, and so definitely, Brett, good to see you. Tim, as well. And that's what I absolutely love about the chat here, and I know you do as well, Jose. Is the group of people who join us every week and invest the time to learn and grow, and look at the horizon and see what's coming. And that's an important thing in what we do in quality assurance and food safety, is saying, okay, here's what I'm doing now. But as we talk about here quite a bit, Jose, is we need to be looking down the road and saying, what do I need to be concerned about? It's recalls don't happen necessarily based on the things you're paying attention to. They happen on the things that you're not paying attention to.
Yes.
In plant-based products, for example, I have clients who are in this space. Bacillus cereus is a big problem, and it didn't used to be. And because of these new plant-based products, these are becoming new risks. I see that there's a brand new subspecies of Bacillus cereus in China that caused a recall on rice earlier this week. If you're part of my locals group, you would know that because we give free updates on that information. So I'll put the link in here that at the end. I'll make a note here, and if I don't remember, Jose, please keep me up to date. So with that, we're going to dive in. Oh man, my nose, my goodness. I apologize if I'm doing this because it's worse. It's better than the alternative.
Ryan, we're humans. That's fine.
So one of the things I love about talking with you, Jose, is you're cutting edge. You're out there, you're doing stuff really that you're not only looking at food safety, you're looking at those things that are around it. So, for example, we've had chats around the importance of understanding law. If you're going to be looking at food, you have to understand how regulations and law, how all this integrates together. It's an important part of what we do. And what we've been looking at, and I talk about this on the chat as well, and there's a really, really good book that you found. I'll put the link in here for this as well, around risk, isn't there? So what have you been looking at relative to risk management?
Yep. Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is going to be huge. Because you know what, Brian? I believe that after you start digging into the definition of a system and you go to ISO 9000 and you look at a system is a bunch of elements working together, pretty much. I'm just giving you a summarized version of that definition. Well, you can apply that concept anywhere in a food facility, in a food organization, in a food company. Okay. So, do we need a system to analyze hazards and risk in an operation? Yes. Now, is potentially that food safety system embedded into a bigger system, which is the corporation, the company that is running the production of the product? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Meaning that, for example, financials, anyone that is responsible for the money, is another system. And then you have potentially maintenance, potentially, I don't know, external stakeholders as part of the context of the company. And they have participation on this greater system.
Yeah.
If we look at the definition, all of them must be integrated for all of them to work effectively. And we don't have that.
It's a good point. We look at, and this is, I think, this is a fatal flaw in what we do in food safety management, is we say, okay, fine, PCQI, I need to create a food safety plan. I do need these activities. I need to do a hazard analysis. I need to look at risk. I need to look at severity. We're all familiar with this process. So the team goes through it and you do a great job, and then no one looks at it again, which is crazy because to your example with finance, that is critical in how they manage the business. So finance looks at it, sales look at it, marketing, everybody in that organization looks at risk except for us, which is crazy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how you do business.
In a bank, Brian, or an insurance company, my goodness, they cannot even start unless they already have, and we're going to most likely talk about this, an actuary, a chief risk officer that is going to be directing a team of people dedicated only for identifying risk in the entire operation, not just food safety.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that bank is a perfect example for everyone. So if you get a mortgage, do you go into the bank and say, hi, I would like a mortgage? And they say, okay, great. How much would you like? No, of course not. They evaluate you from risk standpoint. They say, okay, all right, Mr. Sabal. And then they start digging into everything about you. It's like, all right, how much money do you have in the bank? How much is this? How much is that? What is your credit rating score? How long have we known you? Everything, right? And people who work in the actuarial sciences, they go to school for this. They learn how to evaluate risk.
Yep.
So they're looking at risk from an individual standpoint, and they're looking at it from an organizational standpoint. So to your point, your risk officer in the bank is looking at the overall risk portfolio for that bank. And they're saying, okay, what is our ratio of funds on hand versus our cash positions? What is our equity associated with our mortgage positions? How are we bundling this information up into other financial packages? What's our overall exposure in the marketplace? And then they start playing with things. It's like, okay, if this was to happen, how would that impact our risk in this business? And the government will come in and audit them and see if they are overextended, because then your risk goes way up. Because if everything doesn't work perfectly, the bank fails, and then everyone is not very happy. Sounds exactly like a recall, doesn't it? It's the
Yes,
same
exactly.
mechanism. And if you start paying attention to risk in the organization, you start seeing it everywhere. So let's say, for example, Jose, that you're in a product development meeting and the R&D people are bringing new product ideas to the sales team and the marketing groups, and they're presenting to the CEO, and you're in these meetings as well as the head of food safety and quality. What are they doing? They're looking at the risk in the marketplace and say, okay, well, we're going to launch a new product. Well, we're a cheese company. Should we be making hot dogs? No, right? We don't know anything about hot dogs. We need to stay in our lane. We need to produce dairy-related products. So marketing people don't even go down that path. I don't care. That's too risky. We don't understand that market. Then they start looking and analyzing the marketplace and saying, okay, what are the existing products? What are the profit margins associated with these? Do we think we can launch a new product? How much research do we have to put into this? How do we know the consumers like it? That's risk. They're
Yes.
evaluating the risk to the company. And then it's the responsibility of the CEO. She then looks at all this information and says, yes, this is worth the risk. And an important piece of this that we need to understand, because this gets overlooked too, Jose, is risk is a positive and a negative.
Yeah.
It's like that old cliche we hear all the time about opportunity, Chinese character, right? It's opportunity and whatever else the other side was, and danger. So if you buy stocks, right, or if you buy a mutual fund, you're evaluating the risk. Is this going to go up? Is it going to go down? Am I going to make money? Am I going to be able to retire? We do this all the time, and we just don't recognize it as risk. Like it or not, when you get in your car and you go to the grocery store, you're taking a risk, right?
Yeah.
Do you minimize that risk? Do you put on your seatbelt? Do you have a car with airbags? Do you have a car with good crash resistance? Do you drive at the speed limit, etc.?
Yeah.
And we think in terms in quality, and this is our flaw. And again, to reemphasize this, we think of risk as a static quantity. It is absolutely not.
Not. Yes. I lately, Brian, I've been attending a lot of things related with race management and systems and that kind of stuff. And there was a guy, he's a Chilean guy, and
Mhm.
he said, when we are analyzing risk, and he, of course, was talking about banks. I mean, I was attending a class for people related to assessing risk in banks operation.
Uh-huh.
And he said, everybody starts analyzing the likelihood. And then they analyze the consequence, the severity for us of a hazard.
Yeah.
Well, that is a bad approach. You should be analyzing first the severity and then the likelihood. Do we have in our HACCP training or PCQI? Oh, guys, we need to analyze first the severity instead of the likelihood. We don't have that. Because for us, anyone that is building these matrices the way that we have been doing this for the last 50 years, you just need to multiply whatever is your score of severity and your score of likelihood. And if you're multiplying 3 by 2 or 2 by 3, you will get the same number. But in risk, that number is not the same. And he was using this example, Brian. So let's say someone is running around a pool. What is the likelihood that they will fall? Well, I mean, it's a pool, there is water around. So yeah, it is likely that they will fall. And then when we analyze the consequences and you say, oh my goodness, if someone fall, what is the worst thing that may happen? Oh, people may fall and hit the head and die.
Yeah.
Okay. So you look into your matrix and you go and find out what is the risk associated with that event. Now, let me turn that around. Let's analyze the severity. And because we choose death, okay, that was our previous choice. Okay, if we fall, what is the worst case? Death. Okay, so now let's choose death as the severity. Now, when you look for the answer for the likelihood, you're going to say, when someone is running around the pool and they sleep and they fall, how likely is that they will die?
Yeah.
And at that point, you're going to see a lot of people fall, but not a lot of people die.
Right.
So as you can see with this very simple example, something that we have never thought in the food industry, it starts becoming relevant.
Mhm.
The assessment, the risk analysis, that is risk analysis, evaluating the severity and the likelihood of any event.
Right. And let me throw another wrench in here that's going to make people uncomfortable. Is let's say in your food safety plan, you've evaluated an ingredient for severity and likelihood. And let's say milk. And to your point, Jose, you've done your multiplication, you've come up with your likelihood. How do you take into account the supplier itself?
Yep.
Is the supplier that you've been purchasing milk from for 10 years less risky than the guy that just kind of called you up out of the blue?
Not necessarily.
Right. But you don't know. You don't know. Right.
Well, actually, let me do something with you about that one. Right. So you have someone that 10 years ago opened a brand new business, brand
Okay.
new facility. Everything is brand new. Right now is 10 years old. You have a new supplier that is a brand new business. The risk from the environment is higher in the old supplier than the new one.
Mhm.
By default, because the equipment is older.
Yes, exactly. So with this, and welcome. So Paul points out here that we have an expert in risk assessment in our audience. So Gary, welcome. Hopefully we don't mess this up. So if you have anything to input for our conversation, please join in and let us know in the comments. We'll read through those and incorporate your expertise in here as well. So thank you for coming. So within what we've learned around risk management and what you've learned, then there's 4 types of risk. What are those 4 types of risk then, Jose?
Okay, so I'm going to say something.
Okay.
As many of you, I'm in the process of learning. So, like you already heard,
Mhm.
I know, I'm positive that I do not know. I'm going to start saying that. Because when you look at types of risk, I have been reading a lot of things, but generally speaking, you have risk related with compliance for
Okay.
those industries that are heavily regulated, like us in the food
Yep.
business, heavily regulated. So compliance is the biggest and the
Yep.
most serious risk.
So as an example, we'll kind of go through these one at a time. So as an example, right, FDA is going through a lot of change right now.
Yes.
So RFK Jr. is in charge at the Health and Human Services. The FDA has been reorganizing. The government is laying off people. Microbiological committees have been dissolved and then put back together. And the risk in that area for us as manufacturers for compliance has gone up significantly.
Yep. So now look at this, which is what is amazing. Oh, we're talking about the one kind of risk is compliance. Okay, so what do you need to be in compliance with? Oh, we need to be in compliance with the regulations applicable to our products and our processes. Okay, let's say that someone grabs a copy of any regulation. I'm going to say preventive control for human. Okay. And you read that regulation and you learn and you understand everything line by line and row by row, letter by letter, and so on there. Are you going to be successful? No. And you know why? Because the regulations were written to comply with the law. So the question is going to be, have you read the law? Do you know what is the official definition of the word food or food additive or an allergen that is written in the law? Because that is not in the regulation. And in ISO, in systems, unless you have very well structured definitions, so everybody plays on the same field, it's not going to work. It's a system, and it's a system requires that you connect the law with the regulations.
Yes, and it goes back to what we talk about out here on the chat. What I call you need to understand the rules of the game. If you don't understand the rules of the game, you can't play.
Yeah. So that is compliance, is typically one type of risk. And then we have the hazards, which are they're going to be called pure risk. And then you have control risk. And this is amazing because every time that we identify a significant hazard, and I'm going to use the same language that we use in food safety, Is it possible that the controls that you implement are not going to achieve 100% effectiveness? Yes. And that is actually the case. If you set up, and I'm going to use this example, a cooler, and you say, oh, yeah, we need a cooler because we need to cool the milk.
Yeah.
We need to keep the milk below 40 in order to prevent the growth of salmonella, let's say. Okay. So what is the control for us right now in the food industry? Oh, we go there, we check the temperature, we ensure that it's below 40, and that's it. But nobody has been thinking about the relevance and the importance of the calibration of the equipment of the device that is being used to measure that temperature.
Yeah.
Because if you don't put that in context, the risk of measuring the temperature of the cooler with a thermometer that is not accurate is huge. It's going to cause the recall, which is what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the plant level, an example from my past is so I worked for a company that was producing gluten-free bread, and we were getting a lot of variability in our process. We weren't controlling the process very well. So I spent a lot of time in the plant investigating. And these were small batches that would be made. So they would mix it up in a Hobart and then, produce the dough and then send it on down the line. So there was a row of Hobart mixers where the batching guys would then make these batches. The temperature was critical at that batching process, Jose. And it had to be 75 degrees, plus or minus a couple of degrees in order to get the right proofing of the dough and all that to make a good loaf of bread. And I was looking at the data from that production. Perfect numbers, 75, 75, 75. Isn't that interesting? I'm going to watch. So I spent a lot of time watching them. And they had, to your point, small little electronic, probe thermometers that they would stick in the dough to get the temperature. And so I watched the guy, and he puts in the ingredients and the water and mixes it all up. Okay, very good, very good. And this was a seasoned worker. He knew what he was doing. And then it came time for the temperature because he couldn't release the dough until the temperature was within that range. So then this worker then looked at the dough, and he's watching the temperature and the thermometer's going up and up and up. And then it hits 75 degrees and he pulls the probe out. And then he writes 75 on the paperwork. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? He's like, well, the dough needs to be 75. I'm like, yes, but you took the thermometer out. Well, no, it just needs to be 75. Let's put the probe back in and see what the temperature really is. It was 80.
Oh,
way too hot. But every number on that data showed that it was within range.
Yep.
We had uncertainty in that process that we couldn't even see because of that basic little training.
Now, Bryan, to your point, beautiful example. To your point, look at this one. Okay, so we have a deviation. Fine. Let's look at the root causes. Let's go and perform a root cause investigation, which is part of your system if you have a deviation. Okay. So how do you do this? What is the root cause of this? Do we have an effective root cause assessment procedure? Do we understand Lean Six Sigma? Do we understand the MIC? Do we understand any other procedures, methodologies that can be used in order to attack the problem, from which we will be using techniques like Pareto, like, I don't know, Markov, Monte Carlo simulations, and any other kind of a statistical approach to determine if what is happening in that example was a random case or if it's something that is happening constantly.
Yes. Now imagine in that scenario that operator I was watching was the supervisor. And that supervisor is training his whole team on that's how you measure temperature.
Yep.
Wow. Well, the comments are amazing, guys. Keep them going. This is a fun one showing control of the process. This is a weird one. Did you see this a couple of days ago at Walmart? Shrimp?
Yes.
Radioactive shrimp. What? Radioactive shrimp. Oh my goodness.
I'm waiting for the investigation to find the root cause of that.
Yes. It's like these type of control mechanisms around hazard, and this is where these things overlap too, right? Is new things pop up. Melamine, right? And I think the melamine example in food fraud shows that overlap as well of what we have in the food industry of, hazards that are occurring as part of the process, and then hazards that are intentionally
Yeah,
introduced into the process for fraud.
yeah.
Um, the fourth one, which we really don't look at a lot, which I think is very interesting in the food industry, and we pretty much ignore, is opportunity. What do we mean by opportunity?
Okay. So for that one, I have an example for you. Okay. And it just coincidence that it happened to me, but it's a very good example.
Uh-huh.
Opportunity risk is another category. And that category is related with the doing things that will involve certain risk, but you are going to get an extra benefit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you were saying, it's not a bad consequence, it's a good consequence.
Right.
And a very good example is, let's say that we're going to be cooking chicken at 165 because USDA says that in the geometrical center of the chicken, you need to do that in order to get rid of the salmonella. Okay, salmonella is a significant hazard. We already know that. So, yeah, assuming that you have a thermometer that is super precise, in that you understand the behavior of your process and the variation of your process, and you put a probe and you say, is 166, are you controlling salmonella? Yes, you are. Okay. If you grab that product, you take it to a lab and you say, could you please perform a shelf life test on that product? They are going to come back and tell you, Bryan, you have a 6 month to say something. 6 months. Okay. Now, what about instead of cooking at 166, we increase that temperature to 168, to 169, to 175, to 180, to 200. And you're going to say, hold on, Jose, we cannot go above 185 because we're going to be burning the chicken. And now we don't have the quality, so we cannot sell. The product is super safe, by the way, super safe, but you don't have the quality. So, in that range between food safety and food quality, you may say, instead of 166, I'm going to use 170. Why? Because, the product is a little bit overcooked. We're losing a little bit of the moisture in there. But you know what? When I'm sending a sample of this product to the lab and I'm performing shelf life trials, I'm going to get a 3-month increase in shelf life.
Yeah. Right. So Paul brings up a good point here. I wanted to pull up and get your comments on. Yes. And so this opportunity piece is very interesting, right? So business risk is employing leaders that do not follow their own procedures. Oh, yes. So kind of like they may not even know that's a procedure. So with that opportunity risk, and this is the interesting piece, and this gets back to a major flaw in how we look at food safety in companies. We only evaluate food safety at the plants. Nobody goes to corporate and looks at the risk. Now, for your opportunity risk, every department head that impacts food safety introduces risk into the system. So R&D, legal, QA, operations, marketing, everybody introduce risk, and they all have a different view of risk from their perspective. If I'm running procurement and my objectives and what I'm being measured on is how successfully I am at buying ingredients at a low cost, right? In other words, my goal that the CEO has given me and my bonus is based on is buy things cheap, right? Yes, sir. That's my goal. Am I thinking about food safety risk? No, I'm thinking about the risk to my bonus, right?
Yes.
R&D, right? R&D is under tremendous pressure to innovate and come up with new products ideas. Are they thinking about launching new products, or are they thinking about the risk associated with introducing new allergens? Their first is innovation, right? And if you have a CEO in a company who is very risk tolerant, imagine if you work for Elon Musk, right? The incredible risk that he's willing to put it all on the line to buy Twitter, to launch rockets to Mars. He puts it all on the line. that risk profile for his companies is very different than a CEO for a company with someone who's risk intolerant and is willing to look at these things. So that risk profile of what the company is willing to do to pursue those opportunities in a speculative environment increases food safety risk.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really believe, I mean, reading and learning more about risk, Bryan, is that by taking a HACCP class, we are learning a technique, the way that it was created. But in the last 3 or 4 days, I've been trying to connect HACCP with the typical risk management approach, and they don't match.
No.
And they don't match. That's what scares me. Because yes, in the first 2 columns of the hazard analysis, you do have the hazard identification. Fine, that is one step. And then in the second 2, which I don't agree with the order, but okay, in the column number 3 and 4 of the hazard analysis, you do have what is called a risk assessment, a risk analysis, which is another step in risk management. But then after that, in risk management, you are supposed to perform a risk evaluation, which is comparing the outcome of your analysis with the criteria that you have for that specific thing. We don't have that in HACCP.
No.
It's a simplified version for people. So we're getting trained on something that is not matching the structure of a risk management approach.
Right. Because
it's not going to work.
In HACCP and food safety, right, this has been drilled into our heads forever. We look at 3 categories of risk: chemical, microbiological, and physical.
Yep.
What about people risk? What about facility risk? What about product risk? What about consumer risk? If I'm selling product to small children, do I have a different risk profile than someone who's selling to the general population? Yeah. Who's looking at that?
To your point, Bryan, go to the supermarket and look at how many products are for general consumption.
All of them.
95%. Okay, so when anyone says general population, you know that you're going to be killing kids, elderly, pregnant women, and anyone with their immune system compromised.
Right. So if you have a product that's for a risk profile for the general population, and your sales team goes out and starts selling those products to elementary schools, has your risk profile changed? Yeah.
Yes,
it has. So for me, and this phrase, and I've used this on the chat a lot, and this is something that was always a warning sign for me, but now I'm connecting the dots, Jose, is for me in an organization, risk was characterized by this phrase: Bryan, we never had a problem before. Right? That's a risk assessment. They are saying that we haven't had an issue in the past, therefore our risk in the future is low. Those 2 things don't go together.
Nope. They actually, whomever is not trained to fully understand that risk is in the future and not in the past, you're done. The system is not going to work just because of that lack of understanding of an elemental definition. It's in the future. So if you work in a facility, and I'm going to use FDA now, if you work in a facility and you have ready to eat, exposed to the environment before packaging without any extra procedure, okay, after the packaging of the product for safety, the risk, the possibility that you're going to have at some point in time an environmental hazard landing on the food or on a food contact surface and the product is going to be adulterated is there. You cannot say it's not going to happen to me because in the last 20 years, it never happened. In the future, it may happen.
Yep. Yeah, Cortland summarizes this very well. Thank you, Cortland. Risk assessment should always focus on the end consumers. Yes.
Yes, of course. Of course.
And he brings up a fatal flaw in how we look at things. In food companies, we tend to be very internally focused and insular on these type of activities, right? We're not looking at those from that viewpoint of the consumer. We're supposed to.
Yeah, we're supposed to.
Yeah. Gary's got a good comment here. Reactive risk management versus proactive is a huge trap.
There you go.
Thank you. Excellent.
Huge, huge.
Right. So yeah, one of the things I say as well too is it's not the risks that you know about that are dangerous. It's the risks you don't know about.
Yep.
Which is why in the food industry and especially in what we do, we're constantly looking for new threats. Radioactive shrimp, right? Microplastic, whoa, what's going on with all of these type of things that we're looking at, and we should be then evaluating these things and saying, what's our risk? How does this? How concerned should I be? And the bottom line is risk is there, Jose. You can't have zero risk. There's always going to be risk. It's how do you mitigate and manage that risk?
Yep. And you know what, Bryan, now that we're talking about risk and I mean, by default, HACCP methodology, HACCP risk assessment technique, because that is exactly what HACCP is. HACCP is not a system, it's a risk assessment technique that we use within the scope of our system to manage risk. Okay, so how many in this chat? And I encourage everybody to write something on the chat. How many of you know that HACCP has limitations? That HACCP was not created to cover everything in risk management. That HACCP is lacking in helping you to identify hazards. HACCP is lacking in helping you to determine different levels of risk. And if you don't have, for example, the level of risk, you cannot determine proper controls because you are not understanding the risk.
Right.
How many of you know this, that HACCP has limitation? Write it down in the chat while we talk.
Yep. Put it down in the chat.
Yep.
Right. And if you go back to the genesis of HACCP, it was created to create an almost zero risk environment for food for astronauts.
Yeah.
Right. And trying to manage that in an extremely tightly controlled environment because nobody wants to throw up and get sick in space. You're dead. Right. And so is that the correct context for what we're talking about here today?
I mean, maybe it was a great idea in the late 50s and the beginning of the 60s. Maybe. I'm not going to say no, because at that point, we were relying only on testing the finished product. So, of course, like Gary was saying, at that point, it was a proactive approach instead of a reactive, which is the testing of the finished product. Now, can we improve the technique? Of course, yes.
Right. So really, and as we were preparing for the chat here, this I see, Jose, and I'd be curious to get everybody's comments on this too, this is the evolution of what we're doing. This is the next step.
Yes.
Auditing and things like this, do we need to do this? Yes, absolutely. Do we need to have systems in place? Yes, we need to have systems in place. But our understanding of risk in the food industry is very behind what everyone else does.
Way behind. But I mean, to the bottom of the ocean, Bryan, pretty much. I don't know how lucky we are, or there is no way to measure how lucky we are in the food business of not having more recalls and impacting more people. I don't know how that is happening.
Right. Well, and we see this all the time, right? This question is being asked constantly is we do all this work, we do all this activity, we do all these things in our plants to make things safer. Why do we still keep having recalls? Right? Pretty much year over year, the level remains the same. Yeah. And every now and then we have a whopper. So Boar's Head happens or Bluebell ice cream happens. And we have these massive issues associated with food safety. And public trust goes down because they're like, okay, clearly these people don't understand what they're doing. And it's kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah. I mean, oh my goodness, your facility was found adulterated food product with environmental listeria. Oh my, this is very serious. Oh, your facility was shut down. Oh my goodness, this is very, very, very serious. Why not checking the other facility for the same thing? Really?
Right.
Come on.
Right. Well, and this is the interesting piece of risk assessment within a company of what I'm doing now is we've all seen this in food safety and what we do, Jose, is we have these great ideas and we want to improve things and we try and push this up through the organization and it reaches a point where there's someone who doesn't believe in what we're doing.
Yes.
And it dies.
Yeah.
And then we go, I can't help it, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And I think overall, that's part of our theme here with our conversation is you cannot push this from the bottom up. And that's what we try and do. It's like, okay, if we put in a quality standard and we do auditing and we train our people in the plants, that's where we focus. And then through some mysterious process of osmosis, this is going to work its way up through the organization and get to senior leadership.
Okay, Bryan, so I'm going to ruin part of your reading of the book because I recently went through this. You have two different approaches. You have the top down, but you also have the bottom up.
Yes.
And both of these approaches, they do have their pros and their cons. And the outcome, once you read the book, is you need to have a combined approach to use the best of both approaches. But at the end, to your point, if we don't have commitment from management, if whomever is at the top is not clear that it is prohibited to send adulterated food to the market, we're done. The company will never function good according to risk.
Right, exactly. And no, I agree with what you're saying. You need both, right? But we're not hitting the top piece of it. So
Cortland is saying criminal charges. Oh, yes, of course. It's a prohibited act.
Right. And well, this goes back to our bank analogy. If the risk assessment officer in the bank goes to the CEO of that bank and says, our risk profile is too high, our portfolio is out of balance, and if something goes wrong unexpectedly, we're going to be bankrupt.
Yep.
And the CEO goes, we've never had a problem before. We're fine. We've been doing this for years. And then the bank goes under. To Cortland's point, he's going to jail.
Yep. Yeah. And something, Bryan, that a lot of people are not watching, are not looking, because in the food industry, we do not understand the proper use of risk management.
Yes.
Okay, so now look at this. Let's say that we fully understand risk management. Let's say that we have a chief risk officer with a team of people in every single food facility responsible for the analysis of everything that is happening in the company. Mm-hmm. And you effectively identify significant hazards, not only food safety, significant hazards in your suppliers, significant hazards in maintenance, significant hazards in marketing and sales and the management of the company and so on. You integrate all of that. What is the outcome? The products are going to be super safe. But you know what? The company is going to make a lot of money. And the company will never go bankrupt. That is the outcome.
Yep. And to Noreen's point here, right? She's echoing exactly what we're talking about here. Nothing more important than food safety. Yes. But does the senior leadership understand that? Do they understand the linkage between risk and food safety? And let's take it a step further, Jose. Does the board of directors in that company understand that? Yep. How many people who are on this chat, if you're working for a company, do you know the board of directors? No. They're usually, in most companies, Jose, in the food industry, they're this unknown entity of people who work behind the scenes, who get together and meet somewhere, but they're the group that runs the company. The board of directors hires the CEO to hit the objectives of the company. The CEO then hires his team to meet those objectives. Is the objective of the board of directors, do they sit down and say, to Noreen's point, do they sit down and say, okay, our objective is to make safe food? No. They say our objective is to grow the company 50% over the next 5 years, to have a profit margin, EBITDA of 40%, and blah, 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 so that we can then hit another objective. Yeah. That's what the board of directors is there for, and that's what the CEO is charged with doing.
Yes. Yep. So you know what? The regulations should have a portion exactly the same way that we are saying, oh, you need to develop a food safety plan, or you need to have HACCP or preventive controls class or whatever. The regulation should also mandate a class for whomever is directing food companies. Yes. You know what, guys? When you have your meetings, fine. 50% increase in sales, 10% over 1 year or 5 years. That's okay. It's a business. It's supposed to be growing. But ensure that you do that within the scope that you can never receive, produce, or ship any product that is adulterated or misbranded, because those three things are prohibited by law. And anyone that commits any of those actions is a criminal.
Yes. And this is the interesting piece, is that, so does the board of directors, the CEO, and the senior leadership team understand what we're talking about? Maybe a little bit, not the level that they need to. So within that, and I've talked about this on the chat here before as well, is just because you're a good CEO doesn't mean you understand food.
Yeah.
Because you see this all the time. A CEO is good at executing the directives of the board of directors. They can do that in any industry, aerospace, automotive, it doesn't matter, right? They hit those targets, they're good. And a lot of times in the food industry, we will bring in CEOs from other industries who don't understand risk in the food industry at all. That's huge. Excellent comments here, guys.
Oh my goodness, yes, I was reading so and they're amazing.
And as Duncan's talking too, cybersecurity, right? We haven't even touched about any of those topics. So there's, and I think the genesis of this is a lot of the risks that we create for ourselves in the food industry is ignorance, because the senior leadership doesn't understand the risk associated with the activity.
Yeah.
And these groups, and we talk about, and you're very good at talking about this, Jose, is everything that we're talking about here is an integrated system. We tend to look at food safety as the responsibility of QA.
Oh, no. Huh. Nope. Again, it's a team effort. And when you set up the risk, that I'm going to use something that you mentioned, Bryan, the enterprise risk management.
Yeah.
Okay. What is enterprise? Oh, because we have a system. The company's system is huge and involves marketing and sales and finances and relationship with the regulators and suppliers and customers and consumers, and internally the food safety and quality program and maintenance and so on is so huge that if all of those components are not effectively working integrated, the system is not going to work.
Right, exactly. And groups that you don't even normally interact with in quality and food safety impact that risk profile.
Yes,
so,
and actually that is one of the reasons why, Bryan, for example, in ISO, it is so clear in clause number 4 of the 22,000, you have the external context and the internal context. That must be defined by senior management when they are going through the risk assessment.
Yeah, exactly. And so, as Gary points out here, doing this is a competitive advantage and a moneymaker.
Yes.
Perfect example of this. So, for example, let's say in the organization, part of your strategy from senior leadership and the board of directors is acquisitions. So we're going to grow our company through acquisitions. What does the M&A group look at? Normally, they look at the finances of the target company. Okay, what is their profit margin? What is their market penetration? What is their velocity of the products? What's their portfolio look like? Blah, blah, blah. They then look at the accounting information. By the way, the target company is making their company look pretty on purpose, right? Because they want to be acquired in this particular scenario. Is anybody looking at food safety in those scenarios? No. So let's say, for example, that product is producing, that target company is producing a high-risk product. So your example, ready to eat or something like this.
Yeah.
And then you evaluate that risk standpoint and you realize that you need to go in and make $20 million in improvements to that target company in order to make a safe product and reduce risk to an acceptable level. That needs to be built into the bid for that company, right?
Yep.
To Gary's example, that's how you make money. And
yes,
to So another point on here, what Gary was talking with, and Austin is bringing this up as well, is quality is the last line of defense for food safety is reactionary. It's not
Yep.
proactive.
Yep.
And it fails. Right?
Look at this, Brian. In systems, the goal is to achieve consistency, and in the food industry, consistency in the prevention of adulteration and misbranding. The scope of the system is defined by the law, not by GFSI, and not by the the regulations are going to cite the law, so fine, yes, okay. But it is defined in the law. That is your goal. Okay.
Yeah.
So our goal is to ensure that when we produce food, the food is safe and quality, I'm going to say. Yeah, okay. And we need to do that consistently. That is the reason why we set up systems. Now, the second part of this systems approach is the continuous improvement. Oh my goodness, continuous improvement. So what continuous improvement really means in a system? That once you set up your system, are you going to find hundreds of opportunities to make your system better before having deviations? Watch out, before having deviations. Yes, you will. If you have the right team and the right group of people, you are going to find ways to improve your current system. You do that by using your data, trending, using information from near misses, and use that to root cause. And I was looking at some chat saying, oh, root cause is another story. Yes, I agree. Find the root causes of those things and make changes in your system to prevent the occurrence. That is a preventive action, not a corrective action. So that thing that we use in the food business, oh, corrective and preventive actions. Hey, hold on. Corrective action is one thing, preventive action is another thing. They're two separated things. You use for the continuous improvement, the corrective actions, preventive actions. Now, if your system fails in achieving any of the goals and you have a non-conformity in your system, yes, you need to take care of any product and fix the process and whatever that is because there was a deviation. You go through root causes. It's the same root causes as before, but then you go through changing your program to prevent the reoccurrence because it already happened.
Right.
And that is a reactive approach, not a proactive approach.
Exactly. Right. And we get those confused a lot of times.
Yeah.
So really, and I think this is key. This is where people like us who work in food safety and quality can get out of our bubble and recognize that we are part of the management team. To Noreen's point, the goal of the company is to make happy customers and sell product.
Yeah.
And we are integral to that. And guess what, guys? This is a hard thing to swallow, but writing procedures doesn't meet that objective, right?
Yeah.
If someone doesn't follow those procedures or is unaware of those procedures or doesn't understand why they should follow those procedures, it's irrelevant. And we don't have those conversations. So if I go to corporate, and I do this with my risk assessment process, and I sit down and I talk with the different groups at corporate and say, okay, procurement, explain to me how you do your job. And they, okay, great. How do you, in your department and with your teams, integrate food safety into your processes? And if they come back to, if they come back to me and say, what are you talking about? That's not my job. That's that quality, that's their job.
Yeah.
Has the risk in that organization just gone up? Yes.
Huge.
Does the senior leadership understand that? Right? Does the board of directors understand that risk? No, right? And this is bringing that up. And I think this gets to what we've been working on recently in quality is this amorphous term, food safety culture.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Actually, I was having a very nice chat with a colleague in LinkedIn. And I mean, look at this from an enterprise standpoint. Leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm going to say the owner, the board of director, someone that is at the top of the business. They're responsible for formally, and people may have different opinions about how to approach this. I'm going to throw this out. Someone is going to create the vision for the future. Someone is going to create the mission, how we're going to achieve that vision. Someone is going to create the values of the company.
Yes.
Okay. And then once you have the values, you need to create a culture to comply with those values. The values are developed by corporate, by someone that is at the top. And you create a culture to comply with those values. How can you create proper values in a food business if you do not understand the definition of food, or if you do not understand which are the prohibited acts?
Yes.
It's not going to work.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. Well, this absolutely flew. And as Brett rightly pointed out here, amazing comments, right? Thank you, everybody. This is why we do this, right?
Yeah.
To share information and to get the word out there to say we can do better, right? And risk assessment in the organization is the path forward. And
Yeah.
I'm more and more convinced.
Yeah.
As we were preparing for the chat here and talking a little bit before we went live, this is the future. This is what food companies need to be doing. And 95% of food companies are not doing this. And we see the results of not looking at food safety as a risk assessment tool.
Yep. Yep.
For a company.
For a company, yes, not the quality control department.
Yes, and thank you, Gary. Oh, it's always amazing. I love it. This is I always love it, Jose, when I learn new things and new information, right? And that mindset of continually growing and improving, that's what draws us to what we do. And I'm extremely grateful to all the comments here in the chat for this as well. And so I'd referenced earlier a book that you're reading, Jose. Mine should be arriving here in a couple of days, and now I'm going to start digging into mine too. Here's a link on Amazon to the book that we've been referencing around risk management. So fundamentals of risk management, understanding, evaluating, and implementing effective enterprise risk management.
Yep.
And you know what's weird?
Bryan, you asked me to remind you about the locals.
Oh, yes, thank you. And so within the locals group, and this is part of it, right, is constantly looking at your risk. And again, this is a free group. I will post on this. I posted here this morning, and you look at this and see what are those new risks up there. Radioactive shrimp, all these crazy things. Let's see. I'm stalling here as I get to the link. Here we go. Here's the link. This will take you directly to there, and then you can sign up. And you'll be getting these notifications from me so that you can keep up to date with some of my commentary every now and then as well. And it's a nice way to kind of help support too, if you want to, what I do in these spaces. But that's purely voluntary. That's up to you. Wow. Any other closing thoughts, Jose? Oh man, did we cover a lot of territory?
Oh my goodness, yes, Bryan. It's that we are as a closing, like you mentioned, we are not going to improve the rate of recalls until we understand risk management and the effective implementation of systems. And the most important thing is that anyone that is at the head of a company must understand what is food and which are the prohibited acts in the law. Yes,
absolutely. And if you want to know more from me or Jose relative to risk assessment, what we're doing, because I've created a new program for this, send me an email. Let's talk about this. I was looking at this, and what's funny, Jose, is I've been talking about this now, and I created a presentation around this. It was over 5 years ago now that I've been looking at this. Yeah. So this is the next wave, right? And this is the path forward on how food safety and quality reach what we're trying to get to, which is food safety culture.
Yep.
This is it. Audits are a tool, but they're only part of the big picture. So let's keep that in mind.
No, so and by the way, Bryan, let me say something else. You audit systems that are developed to manage risk. If you don't understand risk management and you don't understand system, there is nothing to audit.
Yep. And I would add to that, the people who manage those processes and systems.
Yep.
Absolutely. So with that, guys, we're going to bring our chat to a close here. Man, that went fast. So of course, so thank you, Jose. Thank you to all of these amazing comments, everybody. I wish I could have pulled more up, but I think you kind of got the general idea. We read everything as we're going through this, and we're trying to incorporate the comments in there. So we appreciate everything. The comments around ISO 22000, all these type of things, super valuable. This is a resource for everybody else too, right? And we're all growing and getting better because of it. So thank you. And with that, we'll bring our chat to a close here for this week. Thank you, Jose, as usual. You're always a font of information. And of course, we'll be back here next Friday at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I'll bring another amazing guest like Jose onto the chat to have a discussion with you. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Lower your risk level a little bit. Have a drink. Don't run by the pool. That's too risky. We don't want that. So thanks, everybody. Have a great time. We'll see you soon.